Hi everyone, and welcome to Fluent English Journey. I'm your host, Ava, and I'm really happy you're here today. Thank you for spending your time with me. If you enjoy learning English in a simple and stress-free way, please remember to subscribe and stay connected. Here, we focus on learning English step by step, every day, without pressure. Today, I want to share a personal story with you. It's the story of my English learning journey and how changing just one approach completely transformed the way I speak, listen, and even think in English. When I first started learning English, I was nervous all the time. I was afraid to speak because I believed I would make too many mistakes. Every time I tried to talk to someone, my mind went blank. I paused again and again, searching for the perfect word. These long pauses made me feel embarrassed. I felt frustrated and disappointed in myself. Sometimes I even thought, maybe English is not for me. Maybe I am not good at languages. But deep inside, I still had a strong desire to improve. I didn't want to give up. So I kept searching for a better, easier way to learn. One day, I realized something important. I needed to change my method. Instead of memorizing long grammar rules or studying huge vocabulary lists that I quickly forgot, I decided to learn English more naturally. I wanted to learn English the way real people actually use it in their daily lives. So I started listening carefully. I listened to how people spoke in videos, podcasts, interviews, and movies. I read short stories and simple articles. I watched conversations that used real, natural English, not textbook English. At first, it was not easy. Many expressions were new to me. Some sentences didn't make sense right away. But I didn't stop. I practiced every single day, even when I felt tired or confused. I repeated sentences out loud to train my mouth and my brain. I wrote down useful phrases, simple expressions, and interesting words that I heard. I tried to use these new expressions whenever I spoke, even when I wasn't fully confident. Slowly, something amazing began to happen. I noticed that I was starting to think in English instead of translating from my native language. This one change made a huge difference. When I thought in English, speaking became faster and smoother. My sentences felt more natural. I didn't panic anymore when I couldn't find the perfect word. I learned to express my ideas in simple ways, and that was enough. I also learned an important lesson. Mistakes are not enemies. Mistakes are teachers. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new. Little by little, my confidence grew. I started speaking with more people, asking questions, and sharing my thoughts without fear. Conversations became enjoyable instead of stressful. Another powerful lesson I learned was this: consistency is more important than perfection. You don't need to study for hours every day. Even 10 or 15 minutes of daily practice can create big improvements if you stay consistent. Small steps, taken every day, build strong skills over time. I also discovered that English is not only about grammar and vocabulary. It's about feelings, culture, context, and real communication. When I watched movies or read stories, I tried to understand how the characters felt and why they chose certain words. This helped me connect emotionally with the language, and learning became more enjoyable. One small habit that helped me a lot was keeping a tiny notebook. Whenever I heard a useful phrase or sentence, I wrote it down immediately. Later, I reviewed it again and again. Over time, that notebook became my personal toolbox of practical English expressions that I could use in real life. As my journey continued, I understood that learning English is a long journey, not a race. Some days I felt proud and confident. Other days I felt stuck and frustrated. But every day taught me something valuable. I also joined online communities where learners from different countries shared their struggles and progress. This reminded me that no one becomes fluent overnight. Everyone learns step by step, and everyone makes mistakes. I want you to imagine yourself on this same journey. Picture yourself practicing English a little every day. Notice your small improvements. Feel proud of your progress. When you see English not as a difficult subject, but as a tool to connect with people and ideas, everything changes. English starts to feel like a friend, not a fear. From my experience, I learned that patience, daily practice, and exposure to real English can truly transform the way you communicate. The more you surround yourself with English naturally, listening, speaking, reading, and imagining, the faster your confidence grows. One of the most powerful methods I discovered later was storytelling. I started creating short stories in English every day. Sometimes I talked about my daily life. Sometimes I imagined new situations or retold scenes from movies or books. At first, it felt strange to speak to myself, but soon it became comfortable. It helped me organize my thoughts in English and speak freely without fear. And that's what this fluent English journey is all about, learning naturally, calmly, and confidently, one step at a time. As I continued practicing, I slowly understood something very important. I did not need to sound perfect. I needed to focus on meaning, not perfection. When I gave myself permission to express ideas freely, without fear, I felt lighter. This freedom helped me grow faster and feel more confident every single day. Instead of worrying about small mistakes, I focused on fluency and clarity. This simple change made speaking English feel relaxed and enjoyable. Another technique that truly changed my learning journey was active listening. Before this, I often played English videos or podcasts in the background while doing other things. But I realized that passive listening was not enough. So I decided to listen with full attention. I focused on how native speakers pronounced words, how they connected sentences, and how their voices changed to express emotions and feelings. Sometimes, I paused the audio and repeated sentences out loud. I tried to match their rhythm, tone, and speed. In the beginning, it was difficult. Some sounds felt uncomfortable, and my pronunciation was far from perfect. But I didn't stop. With daily practice, something amazing happened. My pronunciation slowly improved, and my listening skills became much sharper. I realized that listening and speaking are deeply connected. The better I listened, the more naturally I could speak. It felt like listening filled my mind with the music of English. Over time, that music helped my speech flow more smoothly and confidently. During this process, I also discovered how important context is in English. Words can change meaning depending on the situation. A sentence that sounds friendly in one moment might sound rude in another. By watching real conversations carefully, I learned when and how to use expressions correctly. This made my English sound more natural, respectful, and confident. Along with listening and storytelling, I added another powerful habit to my daily routine, writing short reflections in English. These were very simple. Sometimes I wrote about my day. Sometimes I wrote about my thoughts or feelings. Other times, I wrote about something I learned from a video or article. Writing helped me organize my ideas clearly. It helped me choose the right words. As I wrote more, I started noticing grammar patterns naturally, without memorizing rules. At first, I made many mistakes. But instead of feeling discouraged, I welcomed them. Every mistake showed me what I needed to improve. Each correction moved me one step forward. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that consistency is more powerful than intensity. Studying English for 30 minutes every day helped me much more than studying for many hours once a week. Daily practice keeps your brain connected to the language. Even 10 or 15 minutes a day makes a difference when you stay consistent. Taking long breaks used to slow my progress. But small daily efforts kept English alive in my mind. Slowly, those small improvements added up and became big changes. I also learned the importance of setting realistic goals. Instead of expecting fluency in a few weeks, I focused on small, achievable steps. Some days, I learned 5 new phrases. Other days, I practiced pronunciation or read a short article without a dictionary. These small successes gave me motivation and confidence. Another important part of my journey was interacting with other English speakers. I joined online groups and language forums where learners shared ideas and supported each other. Speaking with real people helped me use what I learned in real situations. It also introduced me to new accents, vocabulary, and ways of expressing ideas. Through these conversations, I learned idioms, phrasal verbs, and casual expressions that textbooks often miss. At first, they sounded confusing. But slowly, I began to recognize patterns. With time, I felt comfortable using them myself. This made conversations feel more natural and enjoyable. One of the most valuable lessons I discovered was the power of embracing mistakes. Whenever I made an error, I listened carefully to the correction. Then I repeated the correct sentence until it felt natural. This helped me remember it and avoid the same mistake later. I understood that mistakes were not obstacles. They were necessary steps forward. Another powerful strategy was immersion. I changed the language on my phone, laptop, and social media to English. At first, it felt strange. But soon, English became part of my daily life. I watched movies and shows without subtitles. I didn't understand everything at first, but with patience, my listening improved. Hearing English in real situations helped me understand rhythm, flow, and everyday expressions. English stopped feeling like a subject and started feeling like a natural part of my life. It became familiar, friendly, and comfortable. I continued improving my English by surrounding myself with the language every single day. I read online articles, blogs, and even short books in English. In the beginning, I could understand only parts of what I read or heard. Some sentences felt too fast. Others felt too complex. But I stayed patient. Slowly, little by little, my understanding improved. I realized something important. The more I exposed myself to English in different forms, videos, stories, conversations, podcasts, and even simple social media posts, the easier it became to think naturally in English. Responding while speaking felt more confident and less stressful. As I became more comfortable, I started learning English through topics I truly enjoyed, like culture, science, travel, and history. This made learning fun instead of tiring. I remembered new words more easily because they were connected to ideas I cared about. When I talked about these topics with others, I noticed that my ideas came out more clearly. I could share opinions, explain thoughts, and describe experiences more confidently. These are very important skills for advanced English. One big breakthrough in my journey came when I understood the importance of rhythm and intonation. English has music. It is not flat or mechanical. I practiced speaking out loud, focusing not only on pronunciation, but also on how sentences flow. I listened carefully to how native speakers stressed certain words, how their voices went up or down, and how they used pauses naturally. With practice, my English started sounding smoother and more fluent. I felt more confident because my speech felt real, not robotic. During this time, I also discovered a powerful technique called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a speaker and repeating their words almost at the same time. At first, it was very difficult. I struggled to keep up, but I practiced regularly. Slowly, my speaking became faster, clearer, and more natural. Shadowing trained my brain and mouth to follow real English patterns. It reduced hesitation and helped my speech flow smoothly. As I continued, I understood something deeper. Learning a language is not only about rules and vocabulary. It is about enjoying the journey. I found joy in understanding jokes, following stories, and expressing myself in English. Every small success, understanding a difficult sentence, or using a new phrase correctly, gave me motivation. These moments reminded me why I started learning English. English slowly became part of my life, not a task. And this change in mindset made a huge difference. When learning becomes enjoyable, motivation grows naturally. You stop forcing yourself to study. You start looking forward to learning. I realized that English is not just a school subject. It is a tool for communication. It connects you to people, stories, ideas, and opportunities. When I focused on communication instead of perfection, my confidence increased. I stopped worrying about tiny mistakes and started enjoying conversations. This mindset reduced anxiety and made learning positive and rewarding. I also developed the habit of weekly review. At the end of each week, I reviewed the phrases and expressions I learned. I checked if I could use them naturally. This strengthened my memory and made it easier to use English in real situations. Over time, my English improved steadily. I could join discussions with confidence. I could explain ideas, tell stories, and ask questions without fear. I understood more of what I read and heard. Most importantly, I stopped translating everything in my head. Another helpful habit was recording myself speaking. I recorded short talks about my day, stories, or summaries. Listening to myself felt strange at first, but it helped me notice areas to improve. When I compared old recordings with new ones, I could clearly hear progress. This motivated me and reminded me that small efforts truly work. One day, I realized something powerful. All these small habits, storytelling, active listening, speaking daily, writing reflections, reviewing weekly, interacting with others, and enjoying the process, had added up. My English had transformed. It was no longer something I studied. It was something I lived. This journey taught me an important truth. Advanced English is not built by memorizing difficult grammar or rare words. It grows through consistency, curiosity, and real-life practice. It grows when you speak even when you are unsure. It grows when you enjoy learning and stay patient. The more curious you are, the more you explore. The more consistent you are, the faster you improve. With the right mindset and steady practice, English becomes a language you live, not just learn. Now, I want you to imagine your own English learning story. A story where you take small steps every day. You listen to natural English. You speak without fear. You read topics you love. You write your thoughts. And you celebrate every small success. Day by day, these small steps began to build a strong foundation. With time, advanced English no longer felt distant or impossible. It started to feel natural, enjoyable, and completely within reach. One important lesson I learned was this: English is not a race. Everyone moves at a different pace. Comparing yourself to others only creates pressure and slows your progress. What truly matters is staying motivated, staying curious, and continuing your practice even on days when learning feels difficult. Every conversation you have, every video you watch, and every new expression you learn adds to your confidence. English becomes more than just a language. It becomes a bridge that connects you with people from different cultures, helps you share your ideas, and opens doors to new opportunities. Patience and persistence are essential. Some days, you may feel like you are moving backward. Some days, speaking may feel harder than usual. These moments are completely normal. They are not signs of failure. They are part of the learning process. When you keep practicing, reviewing expressions, listening to natural English, reading stories, and immersing yourself in the language, you slowly overcome challenges. Progress may feel slow at times, but it is always happening, even when you cannot see it clearly. As my journey continued, I realized that advanced English is not only about speaking well or understanding difficult words. It is also about thinking deeply and clearly in English. I began reading more challenging materials about science, culture, philosophy, and world events. At first, these topics felt overwhelming. But instead of giving up, I learned to break them into smaller parts. I read slowly. I made notes. I looked up key expressions. Then I tried to summarize the ideas in simple English. Over time, this practice strengthened my ability to understand complex ideas and discuss them confidently. Thinking in English at a deeper level not only improved my language skills, but also expanded my perspective. Another helpful strategy one learned was breaking long or difficult sentences into smaller pieces. I focused on the main idea first and then moved to the details. This made reading easier and more enjoyable. My vocabulary also grew naturally, not through memorization, but through meaningful context. I developed the habit of summarizing what I read or listened to. When I rewrote information in my own words, I had to think actively. This helped me organize my thoughts and improved both my speaking and writing. I often shared these summaries with friends, online groups, or spoke about them out loud. Reading and listening became powerful tools for speaking improvement. I also started asking myself questions after reading or listening. Questions like, what is the main idea? Why is this important? How does this connect to my life? These questions helped me think more deeply and form my own opinions in English. Connecting new vocabulary to personal experiences became another powerful habit. When a word was connected to a story, memory, or conversation, it stayed in my mind longer. This helped me use new expressions naturally without forcing them. I paid more attention to idioms, phrasal verbs, and everyday expressions. Instead of memorizing lists, I noticed how native speakers used them in real situations. I practiced using them in my own sentences. Slowly, I understood not only their meaning, but also their feeling and tone. One of the most powerful parts of my journey was practicing English in real-life situations. Whenever I had the chance to speak, online, at events, or in casual conversations, I embraced it. I stopped seeing these moments as tests. I treated them as opportunities to grow. Even when I made mistakes, I learned something valuable. Speaking with people showed me that English is a living language. It grows stronger with every conversation. Each real interaction taught me more than any textbook ever could. I also learned the importance of being kind and patient with myself. Progress in advanced English is often slow and quiet, but consistency always brings results. I stopped comparing myself to others and focused on my own journey. Every small success became a reason to celebrate. Another key insight was understanding what fluency really means. Fluency is not perfection. It is the ability to communicate clearly and naturally. This mindset reduced my fear of mistakes and helped me enjoy conversations more. I also explored English creatively. I wrote short stories, reflections, and imaginary dialogues. Creative writing allowed me to experiment with language freely. It made English feel personal, alive, and expressive. Listening to different accents became another important part of my learning. English is spoken differently around the world. By listening to various accents through podcasts, news, and videos, I became more flexible and confident as a listener. All of these habits worked together. Slowly, English stopped feeling like something I was learning. It became something I was living. Over time, I became comfortable understanding English at different speeds and with different accents. This flexibility helped me feel calm and confident when speaking with people from many backgrounds. I no longer felt nervous if someone spoke quickly or with an unfamiliar accent. I learned to focus on meaning instead of worrying about every word. I also learned the importance of formal and informal English. Advanced learners need to know how to adjust their language based on the situation. Professional or academic conversations often require polite and formal expressions, while friendly conversations are more relaxed. Practicing both styles helped me feel prepared for any situation. Another very useful technique was recording myself. I recorded short talks, presentations, and even simple stories. Listening to my own voice helped me notice areas to improve, such as pronunciation, grammar, and clarity. When I compared old recordings with newer ones, I could clearly hear my progress. This was very motivating and reminded me that consistent effort works. By combining all these strategies, patience, daily practice, creative writing, listening to different accents, adjusting language for context, and self-recording, I slowly built a stronger and more natural command of English. I realized that fluency is not one single skill. It is the result of many small habits practiced consistently. Listening to my recordings became a powerful learning tool. I noticed where my sentences needed better flow and where I could use connectors like however, therefore, and in addition. Once I identified these areas, I focused on improving them in my next practice sessions. I also discovered that learning English in chunks made a big difference. Instead of focusing only on single words, I learned useful phrases like I would like to add that or it seems to me that. These expressions helped me organize my thoughts and sound more natural. Repeating them regularly increased my confidence and made my speech smoother. Reviewing old materials became another important habit. Going back to notes and phrases strengthened my memory and helped me use them naturally in conversations. Over time, words and expressions that once felt difficult became familiar and easy to use. Immersing myself in English culture also improved my learning. I read about traditions, watched films, and followed current events in English-speaking countries. Understanding cultural context helped me understand humor, idioms, and hidden meanings. As a result, my English sounded more natural and appropriate in different situations. I also set realistic challenges for myself. I joined discussions, gave presentations, and explained complex ideas in English. At first, these challenges felt scary. But every attempt improved my ability to organize thoughts and speak clearly. I realized that advanced English is not only about vocabulary and grammar. It is also about mindset. Curiosity, patience, and persistence are just as important as knowledge. Every challenge I faced helped me grow stronger. Working with other learners became an important part of my journey. I joined study groups, shared feedback, and exchanged ideas. Listening to others explain things helped me reflect on my own English. It also reminded me that learning is a shared journey, not a lonely one. Through all these habits, recording myself, learning phrases in chunks, reviewing regularly, exploring culture, setting challenges, and collaborating with others, I built a strong foundation in advanced English. My confidence grew. My speech became more fluent. I could express complex ideas more clearly. I also practiced paraphrasing. Instead of repeating sentences exactly, I explained ideas in my own words. This improved my flexibility, expanded my vocabulary, and strengthened my confidence. All these small daily efforts added up. Over time, English became something I used naturally and comfortably in real life. It taught me how to express the same idea in different ways, depending on the situation. This is a very important skill for advanced English. I learned that good communication is not about repeating the same sentence again and again. It is about flexibility, choosing the right words for the right moment. Another key strategy was focusing on coherence and cohesion in both speaking and writing. I practiced using connectors like therefore, however, as a result, and for example. These small words help ideas flow smoothly. They connect sentences and make thoughts easier to follow. When I used connectors correctly, my English sounded clearer, more professional, and more organized. This gave me confidence in work and academic situations. I also experimented with advanced vocabulary, but I did this carefully. I made sure I truly understood a word before using it. Using a word incorrectly can confuse listeners. So I focused on words I knew well, practiced them in sentences, and slowly added them to my speech. I learned that mixing simple and advanced vocabulary works best. Simple words keep communication clear, and advanced words show skill without sounding forced. Reading became another powerful habit. I read novels, essays, and academic articles to see how complex sentences are built. I practiced breaking long sentences into parts, finding the main idea, and understanding how clauses connect. This improved my reading comprehension and helped me create longer, more accurate sentences when speaking and writing. Thinking aloud in English became one of my most useful daily habits. When planning my day, solving problems, or making decisions, I spoke my thoughts in English. This helped me organize ideas quickly and speak more naturally. Over time, hesitation decreased because my brain was already used to thinking in English. Listening to English songs, poems, and speeches also helped me a lot. I paid attention to rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation. I noticed how emotions are expressed through tone, stress, and pauses. When I copied these patterns, my speech became more expressive and confident. By combining all these strategies, collaboration, paraphrasing, using connectors, practicing vocabulary, reading complex texts, thinking aloud, and listening carefully, I strengthened every area of my English. Speaking became smoother. Writing became clearer. And I felt confident communicating in almost any situation. I also learned to embrace uncertainty. When I didn't know a word, I described it in another way or asked questions. This kept conversations flowing and reduced anxiety. I realized that perfect knowledge is not required for good communication. One of the most important lessons I learned is that language learning never truly ends. Even advanced learners continue improving through exposure, practice, and curiosity. Accepting this idea helped me stay motivated and relaxed. Over time, I noticed subtle improvements. I could follow complex conversations, enjoy jokes and wordplay, and express abstract ideas and emotions clearly. Tasks that once felt intimidating, like debates or long discussions, became manageable and even enjoyable. Mentoring other learners became a meaningful part of my journey. Teaching others strengthened my own understanding and helped me notice areas I still needed to improve. It reminded me that mistakes are valuable teachers, not failures. Reading aloud also played an important role. I read essays, stories, and articles out loud. This improved my pronunciation, pacing, and intonation. Reading aloud trains your brain to think and speak in English at the same time, making communication more natural. Through all these experiences, I discovered something important. Advanced English is not about mastering one skill. It is about combining many skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking critically. Each skill supports the others. When you practice them together, they form a strong and balanced foundation. And this foundation grows stronger every day you continue your journey. Over time, I gradually built confidence and fluency. English stopped feeling like just a subject to study. It became a natural part of my daily life. I realized that advanced English is not only about grammar rules or difficult vocabulary. It is a balance of knowledge, practice, and mindset. Curiosity, patience, and persistence are just as important as words and structures. I learned to accept mistakes instead of fearing them. I actively sought feedback, practiced regularly, and used English in real-life situations whenever possible. Step by step, these habits helped me become a more confident and capable English speaker. All the small, intentional actions added up to a deep transformation. I could communicate clearly, think critically, and enjoy the learning process instead of feeling stressed by it. Learning English at an advanced level has been a long and rewarding journey. One important lesson I discovered is that combining different skills makes communication feel natural and confident. For example, I often practice summarizing ideas and presenting them to imaginary audiences. This may sound unusual, but it was extremely effective. When I explained something aloud, I had to organize my thoughts, choose suitable words, and speak clearly. These exercises prepared me for real-life situations like meetings, presentations, discussions, and debates. I also explored different types of English, such as British, American, and Australian English. Each variety has its own accent, rhythm, and style of expression. Listening to these differences helped me become more flexible and adaptable. It also improved my listening skills because I could understand speakers from different countries more easily. While practicing, I focused on details that many advanced learners overlook, such as stress patterns, linking sounds, and weak forms. Paying attention to these small features made my English sound more natural and effortless. My speech began to flow more smoothly, and I felt more confident expressing myself. Staying motivated was another important part of my progress. To keep learning interesting, I used variety. I listened to podcasts, read articles, watched videos, practiced speaking, and wrote creatively. Doing the same activity every day can feel boring, but changing methods kept my learning fresh and enjoyable. Reflection also played a major role. I regularly thought about what I had learned, which methods worked best, and which areas needed more attention. This helped me focus on what truly mattered and use my time efficiently. Over time, my confidence grew naturally. I could join discussions, express complex ideas, and communicate comfortably with both native and non-native speakers. English slowly became more than a language. It became a tool for connection, exploration, and self-expression. As I advanced, I started noticing patterns I had missed before. I observed how certain verbs work with specific prepositions, how formal and informal styles differ, and how advanced connectors organize ideas logically. Recognizing these patterns improved both my accuracy and fluency. I realized that English is like a puzzle. The more pieces you understand, the easier it becomes to build clear and meaningful sentences. Advanced English learning is a continuous process. It requires regular practice, curiosity, attention to detail, and self-reflection. To avoid frustration and burnout, I kept my learning flexible and enjoyable. By focusing on practical usage and real communication, I became more natural and confident. Today, English is no longer just something I study. It is a way to share ideas, connect with people, and explore the world. My journey has taught me that dedication, thoughtful practice, and an open mind are essential for mastering any language. I now approach learning with curiosity, and every new discovery feels like unlocking a new level of understanding. Communication has become not only effective, but enjoyable. Learning advanced English is not just about knowing words and grammar. It is about using language confidently in real life. I focused on expanding my vocabulary, but instead of memorizing isolated words, I learned collocations, phrases, and expressions that native speakers use naturally. This changed my English dramatically. My speech became smoother, my ideas more connected, and my understanding more intuitive. Every day, I practiced paraphrasing and summarizing what I read or heard. At first, it felt challenging, but over time it improved my flexibility. I learned how to express the same idea in different ways and adjust my language to different situations. At the same time, I worked on balancing accuracy and fluency. Grammar and vocabulary matter, but advanced English is not only about being perfect. It is about being clear. Even when small mistakes happened, I focused on meaning first and refined accuracy gradually. Immersing myself in English became central to my growth. I joined discussion forums, watched lectures, attended webinars, and participated in conversation clubs. I followed online communities and engaged in real conversations whenever I could. These experiences exposed me to new ideas, vocabulary, and perspectives, making my English more adaptable and confident. Gradually, I developed an intuitive sense of English. I no longer needed to translate from my native language in my head. Instead, I began thinking directly in English. This shift changed everything. My speed increased, my understanding became sharper, and my confidence grew strongly. I could follow conversations and texts much faster, respond naturally, and join discussions without hesitation. Another important part of my progress was learning how to give and receive feedback. Constructive comments from teachers, mentors, and fellow learners helped me identify weaknesses and improve them. Instead of feeling discouraged, I learned to see feedback as guidance. Every suggestion became an opportunity to grow, not a judgment of my ability. I realized that advanced English learning is a balance between structured practice and creative exploration. Structured activities like grammar exercises, vocabulary building, and listening practice gave me a strong foundation. Creative activities such as storytelling, debating, and sharing ideas helped me develop fluency, confidence, and natural expression. Both types of practice were equally important. Mindset played a powerful role in my journey. A growth mindset, patience, persistence, and curiosity mattered just as much as techniques or materials. Believing that improvement was possible, even when progress felt slow, helped me stay motivated. I learned to enjoy the process, celebrate small wins, and keep exploring new ways to use English. Over time, I approached learning with both discipline and joy. Advanced English is not just about memorizing rules or vocabulary. It is about thinking in the language, communicating naturally, and expressing ideas confidently. By combining structured learning, creative practice, real-life immersion, and a positive mindset, I transformed English from something I studied into something I lived. English became a tool for connection, expression, and understanding the world more deeply. Staying motivated was not always easy, but I learned to embrace challenges instead of avoiding them. One of the most effective strategies was integrating English into my daily life. I made it a habit to think, speak, read, and write in English whenever possible. Whether I was reading news, planning trips, reflecting on my day, or having conversations, English became my tool for thinking and communicating. This immersive approach helped me build intuition, speed, and confidence at the same time. To strengthen my listening skills, I followed debates, interviews, and academic discussions. These required careful attention, inference, and understanding subtle meaning. Over time, my listening ability and critical thinking improved together. I also challenged myself with speed reading and rapid listening exercises. Learning to process information quickly helped me follow conversations, lectures, and texts more easily and respond without delay. I discovered that active use of English is far more effective than passive exposure. Watching or listening without engagement helps, but real improvement comes from speaking, summarizing, questioning, and creating content in English. To strengthen memory, I use spaced repetition for vocabulary and expressions. Reviewing language at regular intervals made recall easier, even under pressure. I also connected my English learning to personal goals, such as career growth, travel, and social interaction. When learning has purpose, motivation naturally increases. I carefully introduced advanced expressions, idioms, and cultural references into my speech and writing. I made sure I fully understood their meaning and context before using them. This helped my English sound natural and appropriate in different situations. Storytelling became another powerful tool. By narrating experiences in English, I learned to organize ideas, describe emotions, and explain causes and effects clearly. I practiced sequencing events logically and adding meaningful details. This improved not only my storytelling skills, but also my overall communication. Maintaining a growth mindset remained essential. I accepted mistakes as learning opportunities, stayed curious, and kept going even when progress felt slow. Advanced English requires patience and dedication, but it becomes deeply rewarding when language turns into a way of thinking and expressing yourself. By actively engaging with English in every area of life, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and reflecting, I built confidence, speed, and fluency at the same time. English became more than a skill. It became a lifelong tool for connection, exploration, and self-expression. As I continued advancing, I understood that mastering English was not just about words or grammar. It was about thinking clearly, expressing complex ideas, and communicating with ease. I learned to manage anxiety by focusing on meaning instead of perfection. Preparing mentally and practicing calmly helped me speak confidently in both formal and informal situations. Over time, I became comfortable participating in discussions, presenting ideas, and interacting with people from different backgrounds. I also engaged with English media critically. I didn't just read or watch passively. I analyzed arguments, identified key points, and reflected on ideas. This deep engagement strengthened both my language skills and my thinking ability. I learned to question assumptions and compare different perspectives. This habit strengthened my understanding, expanded my vocabulary, and sharpened my critical thinking skills. By reflecting on what I read and heard, I could apply new ideas to my own speaking and writing. Slowly, I built a clear mental framework for learning English effectively. I realized that strong English grows from combining many skills together: listening, speaking, reading, writing, reflection, repetition, and creative practice. Each skill supports the others. When practiced together, they create a balanced and complete approach to language learning. Sharing knowledge became another powerful learning tool. Teaching, mentoring, or simply explaining ideas to others helped me internalize language patterns. When I explained something clearly, I knew I truly understood it. I discovered that advanced learners benefit most from deliberate practice, meaningful interaction, and regular reflection. Knowing words is not enough. True mastery comes from using language to express ideas, connect with people, and think critically. Every small effort mattered. Speaking with a friend, writing a short paragraph, or analyzing a text all contributed to long-term growth. By accepting that learning is continuous and approaching it with curiosity and enjoyment, I made steady progress and built strong confidence. Another important realization was the role of context. Words and expressions do not have fixed meanings. Their meaning often changes based on situation, tone, and culture. I started observing how native speakers use humor, irony, and subtle expressions in daily conversations. These details are rarely taught directly, but they make communication feel natural and real. At first, understanding these nuances was difficult. But over time, careful listening helped me notice how the same word or phrase could carry different meanings depending on context. This taught me to listen more attentively and respond more thoughtfully. I also practiced expressing complex thoughts and emotions clearly. I learned how to explain my reasoning, support my opinions, and describe experiences in depth. By organizing ideas logically, sequencing events properly, and choosing precise vocabulary, my communication became stronger and clearer. I observed how professional speakers, writers, and educators structured their ideas. Then I applied similar patterns in my own communication. Gradually, English became more than a tool for sharing information. It became a way to explore ideas, solve problems, and engage with the world meaningfully. Advanced English learning, I realized, is a journey that blends skill, creativity, and insight. It requires patience, reflection, and consistent effort. By using English in daily life, practicing actively, thinking critically, and paying attention to context and nuance, I built a strong foundation for confident and natural communication. English stopped being just a subject I studied. It became a way of thinking, learning, and connecting with others. Through persistence and curiosity, challenges turned into opportunities for growth. As I continued advancing, I understood that language learning is not only about grammar or vocabulary. It is also about culture, social norms, and communication style. At first, I struggled with humor, irony, and polite expressions. I understood the words, but not the hidden meaning behind them. By observing native speakers in movies, podcasts, and real conversations, and by asking questions when I was unsure, I slowly learned how meaning changes with context. I realized that expressing disagreement politely or giving suggestions carefully depends on tone and situation. Understanding these cultural details helped my English sound more natural and respectful. One of the most powerful habits I developed was reflective listening. After listening to a conversation, lecture, or story, I summarized it aloud or in writing. This forced me to identify main ideas, supporting details, and emotional tone. Reflective listening improved both my understanding and my ability to respond thoughtfully. Paraphrasing also became a key technique. Whenever I learned a new phrase or sentence, I practiced expressing the same idea in different ways. This helped me absorb sentence structures, expand vocabulary, and become more flexible in communication. It gave me confidence to speak freely without depending on memorized sentences. I also set weekly challenges for myself. One week, I focused on phrasal verbs. Another week, I practiced connecting complex ideas clearly. These challenges gave my learning direction. At the end of each week, I reflected on my progress, which helped me see real improvement and stay motivated. Immersing myself in real English experiences became part of my daily routine. I watched documentaries, followed online seminars, and read opinion articles on topics I cared about. This exposure introduced me to advanced expressions and natural sentence patterns that textbooks often miss. Over time, something important happened. I stopped translating in my head. I began thinking directly in English. This change improved my speed, comprehension, and confidence in both speaking and writing. I combine these techniques with creative practice, writing essays, telling stories, and joining discussions. Each activity strengthened my ability to express ideas clearly and naturally. By reflecting, paraphrasing, and practicing actively, I slowly strengthened my understanding and developed a more intuitive feeling for English. I realized that advanced English learning is not just about one skill. It is a holistic process. It combines language skills, cultural awareness, critical thinking, and personal involvement. The more I immersed myself in these practices, the more natural, fluent, and confident my English became. Over time, English changed from a subject I studied into a tool I could use comfortably in every part of my life. As my journey continued, I understood that exposure to English in many forms is essential. Listening, reading, and engaging with different types of content helped me meet advanced vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, and professional language naturally. Along with this, I started recording short speeches on topics I had researched. When I listened to these recordings, I could clearly notice my pronunciation patterns, my strengths, and the areas that needed improvement, such as fluency, clarity, or organization. Recording my voice gave me a safe space to experiment. I could practice long sentences, advanced expressions, and complex ideas without fear. Before using them in real conversations, I tested them in my recordings. This practice built confidence and reduced hesitation. Another helpful habit was mental rehearsal. Before a conversation, discussion, or presentation, I imagined myself speaking clearly and confidently in English. I visualized using the expressions I had practiced. This simple preparation reduced anxiety and helped my ideas flow more smoothly when it mattered. Engaging in debates and discussions, even with other learners, was another important step. In these moments, I had to think quickly, listen carefully, and respond naturally. This trained my brain to work in English under pressure. I learned to use connectors, organize ideas, and manage complex sentences without stopping to translate. Storytelling also became a powerful learning tool. I told fictional stories, shared personal experiences, and explained news events. Stories gave meaning to vocabulary and grammar. Through storytelling, I practiced sequencing events, describing emotions, explaining causes and effects, and connecting ideas logically. This made both my speaking and writing stronger, clearer, and more engaging. I noticed that advanced learners often share certain habits. They read widely, think deeply, practice actively, and seek real-life experiences. I tried to follow these habits by integrating English into everything I did. I also paid attention to mistakes, both my own and others. By observing common errors and reflecting on them, I improved accuracy without losing fluency. Gradually, I understood that advanced English is not about memorizing rules. It is about using language effectively in context, thinking critically, and communicating clearly. Active engagement became a core principle in my learning. I stopped consuming content passively. When I read articles or watched videos, I summarized them, wrote notes, and used new expressions in my own sentences. I explained ideas aloud, discussed them with others, and connected information from different sources. This deepened my understanding and made English practical and usable. Over time, something important happened. I began thinking directly in English. I no longer translated from my native language. I could respond naturally in conversations and express complex ideas with confidence and clarity. I realized that advanced English learning is truly holistic. It requires exposure, practice, reflection, and critical thinking. By using English daily, recording and analyzing my speech, practicing storytelling, joining discussions, and learning from both success and mistakes, I built a strong foundation for natural and confident communication. English became more than a language. It became a tool for connection, self-expression, and understanding the world. One of the most effective strategies I discovered was learning chunks of language instead of single words. Rather than memorizing isolated vocabulary, I focused on phrases, collocations, and complete sentence patterns. This helped me speak more fluently and sound more natural. Words stayed in my memory because they were connected to real situations. I also practiced shadowing. I listened to short sentences or passages and repeated them immediately, copying rhythm, speed, and intonation. At first, it was difficult. But with regular practice, shadowing improved my pronunciation, fluency, and confidence. My ear and mouth learned to work together, and English started to flow naturally. Active practice became my priority. I learned that passive listening alone is not enough. Real improvement comes from repeating, summarizing, asking questions, and using English in real conversations. I practiced agreeing, disagreeing politely, sharing opinions, and explaining ideas clearly. These skills are essential in both professional and social life. To combine all these skills, I created small projects for myself. I prepared short talks on topics I enjoyed, wrote reviews of books and movies, and recorded conversations with learning partners. These projects brought listening, reading, writing, and speaking together in a balanced way. And this is what I want you to remember. Advanced English is not built in one day. It grows through consistent action, curiosity, and real-life use. Each project pushed me to organize my ideas more clearly, use advanced vocabulary naturally, and express the same thought in different ways. When I completed these projects, I felt a real sense of achievement. That feeling showed me that my English was improving, not just in theory, but in real use. Every finished task strengthened my confidence and reinforced what I had learned. Mindset played a very important role in my progress. I learned to accept challenges instead of avoiding them. I stopped fearing mistakes and began seeing them as opportunities to grow. Some days progress felt slow, but I reminded myself that advanced English requires patience, persistence, and a positive attitude. By staying curious and determined, I continued improving even during difficult moments. I also discovered the importance of self-assessment. From time to time, I reflected on my abilities and asked myself simple questions. What am I doing well? Which skills need more attention? What should I change in my practice? This reflection helped me focus on what truly mattered and use my time more effectively. Over time, I noticed something important. Combining structured practice with creative language use made the biggest difference. Learning language chunks, practicing shadowing, engaging actively, completing mini projects, and reflecting regularly all worked together. These habits strengthened my fluency, accuracy, and confidence at the same time. By integrating these strategies into my daily life, English stopped feeling like a subject I studied. It became a language I used naturally for thinking, expressing ideas, and connecting with people. I realized that advanced English is not a single method or a short-term goal. It is a continuous and dynamic process that requires dedication, creativity, and a proactive mindset. As I advanced further, I understood that not all practice activities are equally effective. To improve steadily, I focused on high-impact activities and avoided exercises that added little value. I immerse myself in discussions on complex topics like technology, culture, politics, and philosophy. These conversations pushed me to explain ideas clearly, compare perspectives, and defend my opinions calmly and logically. This improved both my critical thinking and my speaking skills. I also found it helpful to read and analyze speeches by skilled English speakers. I paid attention to sentence structure, persuasive techniques, and how speakers guided their audience through ideas. I tried to apply these techniques in my own speaking and writing. Slowly, my ability to communicate persuasively and clearly improved. Another powerful habit I developed was daily reflection writing. Every day, I wrote about my experiences, thoughts, and observations in English. This helped me organize ideas logically, express emotions accurately, and strengthen grammar and vocabulary naturally. Looking back at these reflections allowed me to see progress, identify weak areas, and understand how my English was evolving. Exposure to authentic English materials also played a major role. Reading novels, essays, newspapers, and articles exposed me to idioms, humor, cultural references, and subtle meanings. These details made my English sound more natural and mature. I began to see English as a living tool for communication and creativity, not just something to study. I actively looked for creative ways to use English. I practiced storytelling, joined debates, wrote reflections, and discussed ideas with others. Through these activities, I developed intuition about the language. I learned which words and structures felt natural in different situations. This intuition grew through repeated exposure, deliberate practice, and thoughtful reflection. I experimented with different learning techniques to find what worked best for me. Combining reading, listening, speaking, and writing across different formats created a balanced approach. Techniques like spaced repetition, shadowing, and active recall strengthened my memory and made my language use more automatic. I realized that fluency is not just about knowing grammar rules. It is about thinking and responding naturally in English. By practicing actively, reflecting regularly, and exposing myself to real English, I developed both accuracy and flexibility. English became a tool for understanding complex ideas, expressing emotions clearly, and communicating confidently in professional and social settings. My approach combined immersion, structured practice, reflection, and creativity. Every discussion, reading session, speech analysis, and written reflection contributed to my growth. By applying these strategies consistently, I built intuition, confidence, and fluency step by step. English became more than a skill. It became a medium through which I could explore ideas, connect with people, and understand the world. A major turning point in my journey was engaging with communities of learners and native speakers. Interacting with others, sharing experiences, asking questions, and participating in discussions gave me real-life exposure and valuable feedback. These interactions introduced me to new expressions, cultural references, and communication strategies that textbooks cannot teach. They also gave me something very important: a safe and supportive environment to practice real communication. Presenting on unfamiliar topics became an important part of my learning process. At first, it felt uncomfortable and even scary. I worried about making mistakes or forgetting words. However, I prepared carefully. I researched useful vocabulary, organized my ideas clearly, and practiced explaining them step by step. Slowly, my confidence grew. Over time, presentations became a powerful way to improve my fluency and clarity. They helped me explain complex ideas in a simple way and speak with more confidence. This practice also strengthened my critical thinking skills. I learned how to build strong arguments, predict questions from others, and explain my opinions clearly. Instead of memorizing sentences, I focused on understanding ideas deeply. This made my communication more natural and flexible. Reading aloud with expression became another valuable habit. I paid close attention to intonation, stress, pauses, and rhythm. This helped my pronunciation sound more natural and clear. I also recorded my voice and listened to it later. At first, it felt strange, but soon it became very helpful. By comparing recordings over time, I could clearly see my improvement. This motivated me to continue practicing regularly. I accepted that advanced English is not a final destination. It is a lifelong journey. There is always a new word to learn, a better way to express an idea, or a new style to explore. Understanding this removed pressure and kept me motivated. Learning felt exciting instead of stressful. I realized that combining structured practice with creative exploration is essential. Structured activities like grammar exercises and vocabulary practice helped me stay accurate. Creative activities like storytelling, debates, and discussions helped me speak freely and confidently. Balancing both became a key part of my routine. Critical thinking became part of my daily English use. When I read articles, listened to speeches, or watched videos, I asked questions. I thought about different viewpoints and reflected on deeper meanings. This improved my understanding and helped me express ideas more clearly during discussions. Summarizing became another helpful habit. After reading or listening, I tried to explain the main idea in a few simple sentences. This improved my memory, understanding, and ability to communicate clearly and briefly. Listening to different accents and styles of English expanded my comfort level. I listened to formal speeches, casual conversations, podcasts, and interviews from different regions. This exposure helped me understand various speaking speeds, accents, and tones. Over time, I became more flexible and confident in different situations. I noticed that active learning worked much better than passive study. Instead of only reading or listening, I spoke, wrote, reflected, and interacted. This made learning faster and more meaningful. Advanced English learning is holistic. It is not about one skill. It combines structure, creativity, cultural understanding, and reflection. Presenting ideas, practicing pronunciation, summarizing content, writing regularly, and engaging with others all worked together to improve my fluency and confidence. Writing also became an important focus. I wrote essays, articles, and reflections regularly. Writing helped me organize ideas logically, connect arguments smoothly, and express opinions clearly. It reinforced grammar and vocabulary naturally, making my English more precise and professional. Using English every day made the biggest difference. Thinking aloud, writing reflections, and having conversations helped me respond naturally without hesitation. Confidence grew slowly, step by step. I celebrated small wins, understanding a difficult article, using a new phrase correctly, or completing a presentation smoothly. These moments kept me motivated. When I faced difficult situations, I learned to stay calm. I broke complex texts into smaller parts, focused on key ideas, and used context to understand meaning. This strategy helped me handle challenges with confidence. Through consistent practice, reflection, and creativity, English became more than a subject. It became a tool for thinking, expressing ideas, and connecting with people. This method made difficult content easier to understand and less intimidating. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, I learned how to approach challenging materials calmly and step by step. As a result, I could engage more actively and confidently with advanced English texts, conversations, and ideas. I slowly realized that immersion is a long-term investment. Spending time with English every day through reading, listening, speaking, and writing creates a natural learning environment. In this environment, the language becomes familiar and comfortable. Over time, fluency, accuracy, and intuition develop naturally through consistent exposure. Emotional connection also played a very important role in my learning. When English was connected to my personal interests, experiences, and goals, learning became meaningful. Stories, real-life examples, and personal reflections helped me remember language more easily. Practice felt enjoyable instead of tiring, and motivation stayed strong. Feedback became another key part of my progress. Constructive feedback from teachers, peers, and even from listening to my own voice helped me notice weak areas. Instead of feeling discouraged by corrections, I learned to accept them positively. Applying feedback regularly helped me improve faster and more confidently. Paraphrasing and rephrasing became daily habits. I practiced expressing the same idea in different ways. This increased my flexibility, expanded my vocabulary, and helped me speak and write more naturally. Over time, I felt more confident explaining ideas clearly in different situations. I noticed that advanced learners do not rely on one method. They use a holistic approach. They combine structured practice with creativity, reflection, and real-life use. Listening actively to lectures, participating in discussions, reading different types of content, writing regularly, and analyzing language all supported each other. This combination helped me recognize patterns, understand idioms, and adjust my language for different contexts. Gradually, I stopped translating from my native language. I began thinking and responding directly in English. This was a big turning point. Communication became faster, smoother, and more natural. Advanced English learning is a continuous and dynamic process. It requires immersion, active practice, emotional involvement, feedback, and reflection. By using English daily, facing challenges with a clear strategy, and celebrating small successes, I built strong confidence and fluency. English became more than a skill. It became a tool to express ideas, share thoughts, and connect with people. Fluency, I learned, is not only about vocabulary. It also requires mental agility. Being able to recall words quickly, connect ideas logically, and adjust language to different situations is essential. To build this skill, I challenged myself with unfamiliar topics, abstract ideas, and debates. These activities strengthened my thinking and helped me speak spontaneously. I also developed strong reading and listening strategies. Predicting content, identifying main ideas, understanding tone, and making inferences became natural habits. These techniques improved comprehension and helped me respond more thoughtfully to complex material. Storytelling became one of my favorite tools. Telling stories, both spoken and written, helped me organize ideas, describe emotions, explain causes and effects, and communicate clearly. Storytelling connected language learning to real life and creativity, making practice meaningful and enjoyable. Connecting English learning to real-life goals helped me stay motivated. Whether my goal was professional growth, travel, or social communication, having a clear purpose made learning more engaging and rewarding. I also explored creative ways to remember vocabulary. Associating words with images, personal experiences, or short stories made them easier to recall. Regular reviews strengthened memory and made language use faster and more natural. Understanding subtle language details became increasingly important. I paid attention to tone, politeness, formality, and context. This helped me communicate appropriately in professional, academic, and social situations. Active listening played a major role as well. By focusing on pronunciation, rhythm, stress, and intonation, I improved my listening skills and speaking flow. I began to feel the rhythm and music of English, which made communication smoother. In the end, I realized that advanced English is about balance. Structured practice builds accuracy. Creative exploration builds fluency. Real-world use builds confidence. Together, these habits allowed me to think in English, express ideas clearly, and handle conversations and texts with ease. By combining mental flexibility, practical practice, cultural awareness, and reflection, English transformed from a subject into a powerful tool for understanding the world. This is Fluent English Journey. I'm Ava. Keep learning, stay curious, and enjoy every step of the journey.